everyone, it's 6:30 and that time of the day again to read. Welcome to 20 minutes of reading with me, Lauren, from Martis Learning Centre in Northcliffe, Johannesburg. We're on chapter 13 of Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, and I have enjoyed every single night reading a chapter with you guys. So welcome back, and I'm glad to have you. And you must be really proud of yourself to have gotten so far in the book. Doesn't it feel fantastic? Before we go on, I always want to tell you a little bit of something. And I wanted to tell you, at my school, we have two main rules. And besides some safety rules, which make sense to keep everyone safe, we have two main school rules. The one is respect, and the other one is choice and consequence. And I want to speak about the second one. Before I do that, I want to say a little something about the rule respect. I believe that respect goes two ways. It goes sideways, it goes up, it goes down, it goes around. What goes around comes around. Maybe that's something to add. So all the children at my school, whether they're in grade 1 or grade 7, understand that we respect everything. We respect learning, we respect failing, we respect trying and even not trying. We respect our work, we respect teachers, teachers respect the kids. We respect plants and animals, and we get respect back. And that is a fantastic rule to have. But the second one, choice and consequence, is a very interesting one. I think if you consider everything that you've been doing in your life so far, mums and dads as well, that every choice that you've made, even when you think you haven't made a choice, you've made a choice, there's been a consequence to that. It's either been a positive reinforcing consequence, so things have worked out well, or things have not worked out so well. And I feel, and I've seen through my own life, that if you understand that consequences are a direct result of the choices that we make, then we can grow and learn and make different choices the next day. And if you can see that every day is a new day and that there's growth, that perhaps you can get over a choice that was a bad choice. And you don't have to beat yourself up about it. You don't have to say I was a bad boy or girl, or I was a bad student or even a bad teacher. You can say, wow, that choice I made today was not fantastic. That choice I made today didn't bring the result I was hoping for. What choice can I make tomorrow? And that, I think, is one of the most powerful rules that we have, if you can call it a rule at all, because it's a life rule more than anything else. And I wanted to say that if you're on chapter 13 with me, you've made some choices over the last 12 and now the 13th day. And have those choices been good choices for you? Would you make them again? Would you read again? Do you think you might pick up the second book, Percy Jackson book? Is that a choice you might make? And if you don't, well, that could be a choice you make. And many, many years ago, I attended an incredible workshop, and they said there are only two have-tos in life. Everything else should be a 1-2, or is a 1-2, or is a choice. And there are only two have-tos are, you have to die, everyone eventually will die, and you have to take up space. I can't choose not to take up space. Everything else is a choice. And you can debate that, and we might add one or two other things, but the empoweringness about that is even when you are in a dire situation, a terrible situation, that you feel you can't get yourself out of, there are choices. And many people, adults, sit in jobs that they really, really hate, and they feel like they have no choice. And at the surface level, I would agree, but you do, because you choose to keep the job and earn the income and put food on the table for your family, or you choose to leave the job. And that consequence is you don't have the income, and perhaps you can't put food on the table for your family. So which choice are you making? And how does that work out for you in terms of your own inner sort of peace, I suppose? That when you realize that you're staying in this awful situation by choice because the consequence is what you need or want, that can be empowering. And that can even be empowering to get you to be okay with your choice or to get you to make another choice. And kids have the most unbelievable opportunity because they're still kids. And I say to my kids all the time, you're still growing and learning. If you make a poor choice today, make a better choice tomorrow. And that's exactly what it's all about. So welcome back. You made a fantastic choice by joining us once again. And without further ado, I'm going to continue with chapter 13 of Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. So let's go. The chapter is called I Plunge to My Death. Clear my throat. We spent 2 days on the Amtrak train, heading west through hills, over rivers, past amber waves of grain. We weren't attacked once, but I didn't relax. I felt that we were traveling around in a display case, being watched from above, and maybe from below, that something was waiting for the right opportunity. I tried to keep a low profile because my name and picture was splattered over the front pages of several East Coast newspapers. The Trenton Register News showed a photo taken by a tourist as I got off the Greyhound bus. I had a wild look in my eyes. My sword was a metallic blur in my hands. It might have been a baseball bat or a lacrosse stick. The picture's caption read, 12-year-old Percy Jackson, wanted for questioning in the Long Island disappearance of his mother 2 weeks ago, is shown here, fleeing from the bus where he accosted several elderly female passengers. The bus exploded on an East New Jersey roadside shortly after Jackson fled the scene. Based on eyewitness accounts, people believe the boy may be traveling with 2 teenage accomplices. His stepfather, Gabe Ugliani, has offered a cash reward for information leading to his capture. Sure, if you saw that, how would you feel? So I think Percy's feeling a little nervous. Don't worry, Annabeth told me. Mortal police could never find us. But she didn't sound so sure. The rest of the day I spent alternately pacing the length of the train, because I had a really hard time sitting still, or looking out the windows. Once I spotted a family of centaurs galloping across a wheat field. Bows at the ready as they hunted lunch. The little boy centaur, who was the size of a second grader on a pony, caught my eye and waved. I'm confused. Why are they seeing centaurs but they're in the mortal world? I wonder if you're confused too. Okay, so this young centaur boy is waving at Percy. I looked around the passenger car, but nobody else had noticed. The adult riders all had their faces buried in laptop computers or magazines. They must be talking about riders on the bus. Another time, towards evening, I saw something huge moving through the woods. I could have sworn it was a lion, except lions don't live wild in America, and this thing was the size of a tank. Its fur glinted gold in the evening light. Then it leapt through the trees and was gone. Curiouser and curiouser. Our reward money for returning Gladiola, the poodle, had only been enough to purchase tickets as far as Denver. We couldn't get berths in the sleeper car, so we dozed in our seats. My neck got stiff. I tried not to drool in my sleep since Annabeth was sitting right next to me. Have you guys tried not to drool in your sleep? Grover kept snoring and bleating and waking me up. Once he shuffled around and his fake foot fell off. Annabeth and I had to stick it back on before any of the other passengers noticed. So, Annabeth asked me, once we've got Grover's trainer readjusted. So, Annabeth asked me, once we've got Grover's trainer readjusted, who wants your help? What do you mean? When you were asleep just now, you mumbled, I won't help you. Who were you dreaming about? I was reluctant to say anything. It was the second time I dreamed about the evil voice from the pit, but it bothered me so much I finally told her. Annabeth was quiet for a long time. That doesn't sound like Hades. He always appears on a black throne, and he never laughs. He offered my mother in trade. Who else could do that? I guess if he meant help me rise from the underworld, if he wants war with the Olympians, but why ask you to bring him the Master Bolt if he already has it? I shook my head, wishing I knew the answer. I thought about what Grover had told me, that the Furies on the bus seemed to have been looking for something. Where is it? Where? Maybe Grover sensed my emotions. He snorted in his sleep, muttered something about vegetables, and turned his head. Annabeth readjusted his cap so it covered his horns. Percy, you can't barter with Hades. You know that, right? He's deceitful, heartless, and greedy. I don't care if his kindly ones weren't as aggressive this time. This time, I asked. You mean you've run into them before? Her hand crept up to her necklace. She fingered a glazed white bead painted with the image of a pine tree, one of her clay end-of-summer tokens. Let's just say I've got no love for the Lord of the Dead. You can't be tempted to make a deal for your mum. What would you do if it was your dad? That's easy, she said. I'd leave him to rot. You're not serious? Annabeth's grey eyes fixed on me. She wore the same expression she'd worn in the woods at camp, the moment she drew her sword against the hellhound. My dad's resented me since the day I was born, Percy, she said. He never wanted a baby. When he got me, he asked Athena to take me back and raise me on Olympus because he was too busy with his work. She wasn't happy about that. She told him heroes had to be raised by their mortal parent. But how? I guess you weren't born in a hospital? I appeared on my father's doorstep in a golden cradle, carried down from Olympus by Zephyr, the west wind. You'd think my dad would remember that as a miracle, right? Like maybe he'd taken some digital photos or something. But he always talked about my arrival as if it were the most inconvenient thing that had ever happened to him. When I was 5, he got married and totally forgot about Athena. He got a regular mortal wife and had 2 regular mortal kids and tried to pretend I didn't exist. I stared out the train window. The lights of a sleeping town were drifting by. I wanted to make Annabeth feel better, but I didn't know how. My mum married a really awful guy, I told her. Grover said she did it to protect me, to hide me in the scent of a human family. Maybe that's what your dad was thinking. Annabeth kept worrying at her necklace. She was pinching the gold college ring that hung with the beads. It occurred to me that the ring must be her father's. I wondered why she wore it if she hated him so much. He doesn't care about me, she said. His wife, my stepmom, treated me like a freak. She wouldn't let me play with her children. My dad went along with her. Whenever something dangerous happened, something with monsters, they would both look at me resentfully, like, how dare you put our family at risk? Finally, I took the hint. I wasn't wanted. I ran away. Sure, I wonder if Annabeth is right. I wonder if she understood that correctly. How old were you? Same age as when I started camp, 7. But you couldn't have got all the way to Half-Blood Hill by yourself. Not alone, no. Athena watched over me, guided me towards help. I made a couple of unexpected friends who took care of me, for a short time anyway. I wanted to ask what happened, but Annabeth seemed lost in sad memories. So I listened to the sound of Grover snoring and gazed out the train windows as the dark fields of Ohio raced by. Towards the end of our second day on the train, June 13th, 8 days before the summer solstice, we passed through some golden hills and over the Mississippi River into St. Louis. Annabeth craned her neck to see the gateway arch. She looked at me like a huge shopping bag handle. Which looked to me like a huge shopping bag handle stuck on the city. I want to do that, she sighed. What? I asked. Build something like that. You ever see the Parthenon, Percy? Only in pictures. Someday I'm going to see it in person. I'm going to build the greatest monument to the gods ever. Something that'll last 1,000 years. I laughed. You? An architect? I don't know why, but I found it funny. Just the idea of Annabeth trying to sit quietly and draw all day. Her cheeks flushed. Yes, an architect. Athena expects her children to create things, not just tear them down like a certain god of earthquakes I could mention. I watched the churning brown water of the Mississippi below. Sorry, Annabeth said. That was mean. Can't we work together a little? I pleaded. I mean, didn't Athena and Poseidon ever cooperate? Annabeth had to think about it. I guess the chariot, she said tentatively. My mom invented it, but Poseidon created horses out of the crests of waves, so they had to work together to make it complete. Then we can cooperate too, right? We rode into the city, Annabeth watching as the arch disappeared behind a hotel. I suppose, she said at last. We pulled into the Amtrak station downtown. The intercom told us we'd have a 3-hour stopover before departing for Denver. Grover stretched. Before he was even fully awake, he said, "Food." "Come on, goat boy," Annabeth said. "Sightseeing." "Sightseeing?" "The Gateway Arch," she said. "This may be my only chance to ride to the top. Are you coming or not?" Grover and I exchanged looks. I wanted to say no, but I figured that if Annabeth was going, we couldn't very well let her go alone. Grover shrugged. As long as there's a snack bar without monsters. The arch was about a mile from the train station. Late in the day, the lines to get in weren't that long. We threaded our way through the underground museum, looking at covered wagons and other junk from the 1800s. It wasn't all that thrilling, but Annabeth kept telling us interesting facts about how the arch was built, and Grover kept passing me jelly beans, so I was okay. I kept looking around, though, at the other people in line. "You smell anything?" I murmured to Grover. He took his nose out of the jelly bean bag long enough to sniff. "Underground," he said, distastefully. "Underground air always smells like monsters. Probably doesn't mean anything." But something felt wrong to me. I had a feeling we shouldn't be here. Have you guys ever had that? Where something feels a bit off, like you don't really want to be there, like, I don't know, it feels wrong. I've had that before. "Guys," I said, "you know the god's symbol of power?" Annabeth had been in the middle of reading about the construction equipment used to build the arch, but she looked over. "Yeah?" "Well, hey," Grover cleared his throat. "We're in a public place." "You mean our friend downstairs? Remember, names have power." Right," I said. "Our friend way downstairs? Doesn't he have a hat like Annabeth's?" "You mean the Helm of Darkness?" Annabeth said. "Yeah, that's his symbol of power. I saw it next to his seat during the Winter Solstice Council meeting." "He was there?" I asked. She nodded. "It's the only time he's allowed to visit Olympus, the darkest day of the year. But his helmet is a lot more powerful than my invisibility hat, if what I've heard is true." "It allows him to become darkness," Grover confirmed. "He can melt into shadow or pass through walls. He can't be touched or seen or heard. And he can radiate fear so intense it can drive you insane or stop your heart. Why do you think all rational creatures fear the dark?" Do you fear the dark? Should you fear the dark? But then, how do we know he's not here right now, watching us? I asked. Annabeth and Grover exchanged looks. "We don't," Grover said. "Thanks, that makes me feel a lot better," I said. "Got any blue jelly beans left?" I'd almost mastered my jumpy nerves when I saw the tiny little elevator car we were going to ride to the top of the arch, and I knew I was in trouble. I hate confined spaces. They make me nuts. We got shoehorned into the car with this big fat lady and her dog, a chihuahua, with a rhinestone collar. I figured maybe the dog was a seeing-eye chihuahua, because none of the guards said a word about it. We started going up inside the arch. I'd never been in an elevator that went in a curve. My stomach wasn't too happy about it. No parents, the fat lady asked us. She had beady eyes, pointy, coffee-stained teeth, and floppy denim hat, and a denim dress that bulged so much she looked like a blue jean blimp. They're below, Annabeth told her. Scared of heights. Oh, the poor darlings. The chihuahua growled. The woman said, Now, Sonny, behave. The dog had beady eyes like its owner, intelligent and vicious. I said, Sonny, is that his name? No, the lady told me. She smiled, as if that cleared everything up. At the top of the arch, the observation deck reminded me of a tin can with carpeting. Rows of tiny windows looked out over the city on one side and the river on the other. The view was okay, but if there's anything I like less than a confined space, it's a confined space 200 meters in the air. I was ready to go pretty quick. Annabeth kept talking about structural supports and how she would have made the windows bigger and designed a see-through floor. She probably could have stayed up there for hours, but luckily for me, the park ranger announced that the observation deck would be closing in a few minutes. I steered Grover and Annabeth towards the exit, loaded them into the elevator, and I was about to get in myself when I realized there was already 2 other tourists inside, no room for me. The park ranger said, Next car, sir. We'll get out, Annabeth said. We'll wait with you. But that was going to mess everybody up and take even more time, so I said, Nah, it's okay. I'll see you guys at the bottom. Grover and Annabeth both looked nervous, but they let the elevator door slide shut. Their car disappeared down the ramp. Now the only people left on the observation deck were me, a little boy with his parents, the park ranger, and the fat lady with her chihuahua. I smiled uneasily at the fat lady. She smiled back, her forked tongue flickering between her teeth. Wait a minute. Forked tongue? Before I could decide if I'd really seen that, her chihuahua jumped down and started yapping at me. Now, Sonny, the lady said. Does this look like a good time? We have all these nice people here. Doggy, said the little boy. Look at Doggy. His parents pulled him back. The chihuahua bared his teeth at me, foam dripping from his black lips. Well, son, the fat lady sighed, if you insist. Ice started forming in my stomach. Did you just call that chihuahua your son? Chimera, dear, the fat lady corrected. Not a chihuahua. It's an easy mistake to make. She rolled up her denim sleeves, revealing that the skin of her arms was scaly and green. When she smiled, I saw that her teeth were fangs. The pupils of her eyes were sideways slits like a reptile's. The chihuahua barked louder, and with each bark it grew, first to the size of a Doberman, then to a lion. The bark became a roar. The little boy screamed. His parents pulled him back towards the exit, straight into the park ranger, who stood paralyzed, gaping at the monster. The chimera was now so tall, its back rubbed against the roof. It had the head of a lion with a blood-caked mane, the body and hooves of a giant goat, and a serpent for a tail. A 3-meter-long diamond back growing right out of its shaggy behind. The rhinestone dog collar still hung around its neck, and the plate-sized dog tag was now easy to read. Chimera, rabid, fire-breathing, poisonous. If found, please call Tartarus, extension 954. Gee, I hope I'm getting these Greek names right for you. I realized I hadn't even uncapped my sword. My hands were numb. I was 3 meters away from the chimera's bloody maw, and I knew that as soon as I moved, the creature would lunge. The snake lady made a hissing noise that might have been laughter. Be honoured, Percy Jackson. Lord Zeus rarely allows me to test a hero with one of my brood, for I am the mother of monsters, the terrible Echidna. I stared at her. All I could think to say was, "Isn't that a kind of anteater?" She howled, her reptilian face turning brown and green with rage. I hate it when people say that. I hate Australia, naming that ridiculous animal after me. For that, Percy Jackson, my son shall destroy you. Woo. The chimera charged, its lion teeth gnashing. I managed to leap aside and dodge the bite. I ended up next to the family and the park ranger, who were all screaming now, trying to pry open the emergency exit doors. I couldn't let them get hurt. I uncapped my sword, ran to the other side of the deck and yelled, "Hey, Chihuahua!" The chimera turned fast, faster than I would have thought possible. Before I could swing my sword, it opened its mouth, emitting a stench like the world's largest barbecue pit, and shot a column of flame straight at me. I dived through the explosion. The carpet burst into flames. The heat was so intense, it seared off my eyebrows. Where I had been standing a moment before was a ragged hole in the side of the arch, with melted metal steaming around the edges. Great, I thought. We'd just blowtorched a national monument. Riptide, he soared. Riptide was now a shining bronze blade in my hands, and as the chimera turned, I slashed at its neck. That was my fatal mistake. The blade sparked harmlessly off the dog collar. I tried to regain my balance, but I was so worried about defending myself against the fiery lion's mouth, I completely forgot about the serpent tail until it whipped around and sank its fangs into my calf. My whole leg was on fire. I tried to jab Riptide into the chimera's mouth, but the serpent tail wrapped around my ankles and pulled me off balance, and my blade flew out of my hand, spinning out of the hole in the arch and down towards the Mississippi River. I managed to get my feet, but I knew I had lost. I was weaponless. I could feel deadly poison racing up to my chest. I remembered Chiron saying that Anaglusmos would always return to me, but there was no pen in my pocket. Maybe it had fallen too far away. Maybe it only returned when it was in pen form. I didn't know, and I wasn't going to live long enough to figure it out. I backed into the hole in the wall. The chimera advanced, growling, smoke curling from its lips. The snake lady, Echidna, cackled. "They don't make heroes like they used to, hey, son?" The monster growled. It seemed in no hurry to finish me off now that I was beaten. I glanced at the park ranger and the family. The little boy was hiding behind his father's legs. I had to protect these people. I couldn't just die. I tried to think, but my whole body was on fire. My head felt dizzy. I had no sword. I was facing a massive fire-breathing monster and its mother, and I was scared. There was no place else to go, so I stepped to the edge of the hole. Far, far below, the river glittered. If I died, would the monsters go away? Would they leave the humans alone? "If you are the son of Poseidon," Echidna hissed, "you would not fear water. Jump, Percy Jackson. Show me that water will not harm you. Jump and retrieve your sword. Prove your bloodline." Yeah, right, I thought. I'd read somewhere that jumping into water from a couple of stories up was like jumping onto solid tar. From here, I'd splatter on impact. The chimera's mouth glowed red, heating up for another blast. "You have no faith," Echidna told me. "You do not trust the gods. I cannot blame you, little coward. Better you die now. The gods are faithless. The poison is in your heart." She was right. I was dying. I could feel my breath slowing down. Nobody could save me, not even the gods. Do you ever feel like that sometimes? Sure, this is terrible, and I'm never going to get out of this situation. Percy feels like that right now. I backed up and looked down at the water. I remembered the warm glow of my father's smile when I was a baby. He must have seen me. He must have visited me when I was in my cradle. I remembered the swirling green trident that had appeared above my head the night of Capture the Flag, when Poseidon had claimed me as his son. But this wasn't the sea. This was the Mississippi, dead center of the USA. There was no sea god here. "Die, faithless one," Echidna rasped, and the chimera sent a column of flame towards my face. "Father, help me," I prayed. I turned and jumped, my clothes on fire, poison coursing through my veins. I plummeted towards the river. It's the end of the chapter. How could they finish it there? That's insane. Well, they call that a cliffhanger. I mean, almost literally, because he's just jumped off the bridge, the cliff, and we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we kind of do, because we haven't finished the book. We've still got a way to go. But what a way to end this chapter. What do you think is going to happen? So do you think Percy made the right choice? What do you think the consequence is going to be for his choice? And if he'd stayed up with the chimera and the lady, if that was his choice, what would the consequence have been of that choice? So you see, everything has a consequence. Even little things like you feeling hungry and you don't eat. Or you feeling hungry and you do eat. And talking about that, I hope you guys have had a lovely dinner. I'm off to have my dinner. And wow, we've got another chapter tomorrow, and the chapter title is called "I Become a Known Fugitive." So Percy survives. I wonder what's going to happen. So, if you enjoyed reading with me for these 20 minutes every day, Lauren, press like or share so that somebody else gets to enjoy this wonderful book with us. And if you're not catching us every time on Facebook Live, my stories are being aired on Fairland Radio, which is a local radio station in Johannesburg. And you can catch the reading of every chapter there every night. I think they're on chapter 4 or 5 now, so you can go back if you're not up with us on chapter 13. And wherever you find us, listen to a book. And if you can't go online, get your mom or dad to read the chapter to you. Have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.